Hello, students. Before I start talking to you about section 1.6, I have to review an old idea, and that idea is domain restrictions. Now, we have a couple things in our real number system that we're not allowed to do. First of all, when you have a fraction, the bottom of it cannot be 0. That's very bad, so don't do that. And we're going to pick x's so that we don't get zeros in the bottom. Another thing, when you have a radical, you're not allowed to have a negative underneath a radical with an even index. That's also very bad. And we're going to choose our x's so that we can avoid those things. Now, I want to point out that there are only 2 domain restrictions that we've talked about so far. We'll get a couple others later. We're going to get over to logarithms, but right now we only have 2 domain restrictions. So we only have 2 things to watch out for. It's mostly vocabulary. Domain restriction scares people, but that's okay. So we only have 2 little tiny things to worry about. So, first of all, my problem number 2 in the homework. I have 1 over x minus 4. This is problem number 2. And plus 1 over x plus 3 is equal to 1 over x squared minus x minus 12. So let's talk domain restrictions. I cannot allow my x to be something that would enable me to have a 0 in the denominator. So before we even get started with solving this problem, and at this point they're not asking you to solve, they just want you to take a look at it and get some information. We have to identify what things x is not allowed to be. For example, right there, x cannot be a 4. So if x is 4, then we have a domain restriction. We have a 0 in the denominator. That's a domain restriction. We're not allowed to say that x is 4. Also, because of this one, we're not allowed to say that x is equal to negative 3. So I have to exclude from my possible answers a 4 and a negative 3. Those 2 things are going to be bad. Now this one over here, this is made up of x minus 4 times x plus 3. So I've already talked about I'm not allowed to have a 4, so that one's already taken care of, and I'm not allowed to have a negative 3. So that one's also taken care of. So I say that my domain restrictions, or the way that they say it in here, is the values of x that cannot be solutions of the equation are going to be negative 3 and 4.